Funding for Elwood City Limits is brought to you by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
Tumblr,
ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com,
email,
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com,
and by contributions from listeners like you.
literally at ElwoodCityLimits.libsyn.com.
Thank you.
Cha-ching, cha-ching, baby.
Well,
Okay. Oh,
sorry.
we're both eager beavers. We took a week off from one another. We can't wait. We're off to the races already.
Man, we're deep into the advent calendars. We're going hard in the paint on Christmas.
Ooh, I of course am doing the advent calendars as well. Got the traditional Lindt going on. Shout out to Lindt Chocolate. Also have the David's Tea of the Day advent calendar, which is equally as fun. How about yourself, Will?
I have a few people who are doing like the not necessarily chocolate advent calendar this year. So Jenna has the Lindt one, and she got for me the Kinder Surprise advent.
Do you know what's one I've always wanted to try, but it's a little expensive?
What's that?
Have you seen the Lego one?
Yes, I have. I've seen like the Lego Star Wars one that's exclusive to this year. I've always wondered, like, is it a figure every day? Is it a new thing to build? Is it like a brick every day?
I don't know the specifics. I feel like when I was looking at it before, it was enough every day that it seemed worth its while. But I don't remember if it's like a fig every day. That'd be crazy if it was.
They're expensive, as I understand. Well, whether you've got an advent calendar on the go, whether you're celebrating 8 crazy nights, or whatever you're doing this holiday season, welcome back to Elwood City Limits. My name's Will Young. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Lucas Mancini.
Nighty-night, you poopsicle.
I mean, I've heard it called 8 Crazy Nights apart from the movie, but yeah, I guess.
Yes, I know. I just can't hear it when I'm thinking about like Adam Sandler talking to Adam Sandler doing an awful old person impersonation.
Excuse me, sir, but can you? Like, I might be a bad person, but like the character's name is Whitey in that movie. That voice always makes me laugh. Like, even though it's utterly terrible, it's like I can't help but giggle every time I hear it. So I guess that's my own little weakness. I hope that you're having a great holiday so far. We certainly are, and it's always better when we get to talk about Arthur, no matter what time of the year it is. Before we get into it, though, Lucas, well, last week we took a little bit of a break from the Arthur Season 3 to talk about reading Rainbow. Me and Anna did that. You can check out last week's episode. It was a nice, fun one to check out an episode of Reading Rainbow from, I'm sure, before not just myself, but a fair amount of our audience was born.
How was old, what's his face, the blind guy from Star Trek?
LeVar Burton.
Yeah, how was old LeVar?
LeVar's great. He's a fantastic host. Like, he's very fun. He's very game. Yeah, he's just he's a terrific, versatile performer. So I think that he's one of the people that was made for that sort of. So we did get a little bit of feedback about that episode, and we've been sitting on some since November 28th. So that's about 2 weeks here. So let's not waste any time. These are emails received at ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com. I have a couple quick ones here from Josh. Josh first wants to say, what would be better, Prunella leaving the show forever, or the show finally addressing the nice things that Sue Ellen said about Arthur in her diary? So if you could have one, which one would you want more?
I would have the show addressing the nice things that Sue Ellen said, because I think that's more thematically interesting. As much as I dislike Prunella, and how she's almost X-Pac heat with me, like she's almost changed the channel heat, I do get a kick out of her sometimes, especially when the writers are self-aware about her, and I think it'd be a lot more interesting to follow up with the Sue Ellen plotline, because that's just like, that's basic storytelling. Ross and Rachel, you know how it goes.
Yeah. Josh also in a separate email. Now, I gotta say, this is something that maybe I didn't realize was going to have the legs that it did. You know, I want to say at least a third, if not maybe even half of the emails that we've received in this show's lifetime have been about the human-animal hierarchy. And
We
so
keep going back and forth. That's why the theory keeps changing.
So Josh has his own theory, and it boils down to this. It's one of his final lines here. Josh believes that the characters of Arthur are animals that have learned from the humans and have killed them, and now claim their right over the earth. He says this is far-fetched, but so is the concept of Arthur. So who's to say?
You know, with all this human-animal hierarchy stuff, it really gets me thinking about Busy Town.
Okay.
Like, if the Arthur people, like, at least at Busy Town, like, the worm drives a big Apple car, you know what I mean? But the Arthur people have really just repurposed our own technology if they're the ones who have wiped out the humans. I think there's a similar theory about Cars, right? That the humans used to exist in the Cars universe, but then that Stephen King movie happened, and so all the cars came to life and killed all the humans.
Yes,
Maximum Override.
Maximum Overdrive. Yeah, that's right. With the Green Goblin truck.
Yeah.
We made you. We made you.
No, but the Planet of the Apes theory is a fun one, and it would explain why some animals can think and some animals can't. I don't know though.
I don't know if we'll ever have a satisfactory answer short of Mark Brown himself coming onto the show and laying down the law, which, Mr. Brown, we'd be happy to have you here. So
season 12, episode 4, it's like Arthur goes to like the real world, a la The Simpsons or something. Like, watch us speak about how there's never an explanation, and I bet they like write one near the end just to spite us.
Our next one comes from Corban Garcia, former guest of the show. Corban, he knows he's a bit late with this.
He's Corban's graduated to friend of the show status, I would say.
I agree. Friend of the show, Corban Garcia. Very well said. He just wanted to send in his top 5 episodes from season 2, which Lucas and I both did. If you're curious our thoughts on season 2, you can go back to that episode just a few away. So he doesn't put them in order from 1 to 5. So it's I should say from descending order or ascending order. It's just kind of 1, 2, 5. He's got Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers, which he says was the first Arthur episode he ever saw. Arthur Makes a Movie, which influenced his love for filmmaking. The Short Quick Summer, which is an episode he relates to. Buster Baxter Cat Saver, which he deems a classic. And Fern's Slumber Party, which he also really relates to. He says, I'm looking forward to listening to your Arthur's Perfect Christmas commentary and toward your takes the rest of season 3. Merry Christmas from Corban.
On that note, Will, before we get into his email,
yes,
where can people find the Arthur's Perfect Christmas commentary?
Well, Lucas, they can go back to the old haunt. SoundCloud.com/Elwood City Limits is where you can find the commentary for Arthur's Perfect Christmas. And we even put the link to that very special in the description on that file. So go on over there, have yourself a boogie-woogie Christmas and a rockin' and a reelin' New Year. And finally, we have an email here from Matt, who the email is titled, How Great is Reading Rainbow? Hey, Will and Lucas, my favorite episode of Reading Rainbow was the one where they went behind the scenes of Star Trek The Next Generation. Besides causing my interest in both Star Trek and filmmaking, the main story read in the episode also happened to feature The Bionic Bunny Show by Mark Brown. The book doesn't actually involve Arthur and company at all, but the character would obviously later be included in the TV series. It's a fun bit of unintentional crossover, but I think the real reason to seek the episode out is all the cool behind-the-scenes info on TNG. Keep up the good work. He's very excited for the 2 musical episodes this season, which so am I. And he didn't include any insane Kratt Brothers theories this time, but if we ever are in need, hit up Matt. Thanks a lot, Matt. And he gave us a link to the episode, which I think I may just take a whirl because Jenna and I are almost done TNG. We've only got a couple of episodes left.
Wow, did you watch it all in linear order? You didn't like look up one of those like TNG in 8 hours lists or something like that?
From season 1 to season 7, every single one.
Wow, that's a rough first 2 seasons.
It was, but it wasn't without its charms. Like there are a couple of things worth watching in those first 2 seasons. It's just once you hit 3 into about 6, it gets real good. Like on a show to show basis.
The old rule: does Riker have a beard? Then. If he does, I'm watching this episode. If he doesn't, the next question on that flowchart is this the episode with the goopy monster? And if it's not, then I'm not gonna watch the episode.
Although that can be a bit of a false flag because Riker got the beard in season 2, and the quality uptick didn't really start until season 3. So be careful. It's more of an I before E, except after C rule. It's not hard and fast. All right, so all that is out of the way. Thank you everybody for the emails. Really appreciate it, as always. And let's do it. This is the Arthur episode that starts with Arthur Goes Crosswire. So speaking of flags, we've got a flag here, a flag on the play for a Muffy episode. Arthur's starting the episode talking about how change can happen sometimes. It can be good or it can be bad. Examples being when the cafeteria tries out a new recipe, such as Mrs. McGrady testing eggplant gelatin, which everybody doesn't even dare to try, except for Buster, who really likes it.
Now, Will, I know our shtick is, listen, comedy's not new to me, Will. It's old hat. I know our shtick is you always are disgusted by the foods, and, I always play devil's advocate, and hilarious comedy ensues, but I have to say, this one might be just a hair too far for even me. I don't know if I could defend eggplant gelatin.
Well, I mean, at this point, the disgusting food is kind of... It's a little old hat, so I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I'm glad that we found the ceiling. So eggplant gelatin is where you draw the line. I'm happy to hear it in a way.
That's right. It wasn't at the ice cream with the chicken feet sticking out of it. It was eggplant gelatin was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. Okay. So good. This is okay. Finally, you're becoming human. We also have Arthur saying change could be good sometimes, like when DW pretended that she was a cat for about a week straight. By the way, I think this also is a meme that I've seen somewhere. There's a part where where Arthur says, "Look, DW, a mouse," and she kind of looks around and hisses. And I've definitely seen like an in-between screen grab of her kind of hunched over on the floor and like doing a wild reaction.
DW auditioning to be a manimal.
Yeah,
Look up Manimal on YouTube, folks, or don't. It's up to you.
She's pretty agile. She's got the cat part down. She's like jumping straight from the floor to the top of the couch in like one adept movement.
She also arches her back like a cat, or let's say a CrossFitter would arch their back when they're having poor deadlift form.
Oh, so maybe I was gonna say, do you think DW gets into CrossFit later in life? But maybe she tries.
DW definitely gets into CrossFit later in life, and then talks about it nonstop. Absolutely, yes. DW is absolutely into CrossFit later on in life.
So she's on Insta. She's talking about getting swole
Yep.
AF.
Yep. She's on Insta. She's hitting that big old tire with a hammer.
She's doing
the works.
Doing the ropes.
The ropes, yeah, exactly. The ropes, they always look like it's not that hard, but it's gotta be hard because they do always show video of people doing it. It just doesn't look that hard, but maybe it's because they're so fit that they make it look easy.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is, and I mean, it's the ropes are probably very, very heavy and just kind of...
I assume it's not just an elaborate prank to make me think that, like... You know what I mean? Like, there's only two possibilities here. It's one, the ropes are hard, and two, everyone in the world is in on an elaborate joke and tricking me that CrossFit's actually hard, when in reality, swinging those ropes around is as easy as it looks.
Yeah, I don't know how likely that would be. Sounds like a little bit of paranoid thinking to me. So both parts of this episode are based around Mr. Ratburn assigning a new assignment the day after he is already assigned one, and it's about, I think it's, what is it, a page and a half on the animal of their choosing.
It's a fun assignment. I'd like to do that.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty bare bones though. I mentioned he's assigned some heavy stuff so far in the show, and it's just like, all right, a page and a half group report on an animal of their choosing. So it's not it's not going to break them. It's not a brain breaker like Ratburn's used to. And I was watching this with Jenna, and she said, I assume he means animals besides themselves.
Oh, no! Oh, jeez.
It's got to be said. We don't have to dwell on it, but I was thinking the same thing. So of course Arthur and Buster are kind of hearing this, and they're crossing their fingers that they get to be in a group together. But no, as they're leaving school, Buster's saying, like, maybe it won't be all that bad. And Arthur revealed that he has been paired up with Muffy, and he looks as psyched about working with Muffy as we are to talk about her.
He gets kidnapped.
Yeah, he does. He really, like, she really takes him by the scruff of his neck, which is a gag in cartoons I always like, when somebody is, like, pulled off screen by the crook of their neck.
Not only pulled off screen, but like imprisoned in a car against his will, driven off in a limousine. The whole thing's a little like I was thinking, like, did Arthur like plan to go with Muffy after school? He couldn't have, because they just heard about the assignment at the school day. So like, where does his parents think he is?
That's a great question. But you know, when you got money, I mean, you could just kind of do these things.
Like, yeah, that's right. They could make the charges disappear.
So they go out on the high seas on Muffy's yacht to try and see. I believe they're researching dolphins for their report, but they didn't see
whales or something.
Whales. That's it. Whales.
Oh my god! I just realized.
Yeah.
That the assignment in both these episodes is the same assignment.
Yeah, it's almost
because at the end of the other episode, the end of the next episode, Arthur's in the whale costume. I didn't put that together until now. That it's these stories are happening concurrently.
Yeah, it's a framing device that both of the stories kind of spin out of, which I think is cool, and it's a device that they don't use all the time. Anyway, Arthur at the next day at the Sugar Bowl is just talking about how bored he was over there. Him and Buster are having some pretty good looking ice cream sundaes, and Jenna and Prunella come up and say how jealous they are of Arthur and how cool it is that he got to hang out on Muffy's yacht. Nice to see Jenna getting more speaking lines. Buster is helping him hatch a plan that he can, well, not so much hatch a plan, just saying that he should fake sick so that he doesn't have to go back on Muffy's yacht. But then when Arthur kind of realizes what that means from a status standpoint, you know, he gets up to join Muffy, and he even says some people would give anything to go on Muffy's yacht. And I will add, he left his whole ice cream behind, and I was mad.
This was also one of my favorite moments of this whole episode, because the way Buster delivers his lie, we've established that Buster either like is a poor liar on purpose, when he just kind of, Buster's got a motor mouth. He just says things and gets himself in trouble all the time, sort of accidentally snitching. This time he actually delivers his lie, but the way he overacts, where he's like, sorry, Muffy, Arthur can't come. He's sick. And then, like, he does one of those winks where you lift your head all the way up, wink, and then push your head all the way down. I just thought it was a great little moment.
That's a great point. Buster proven to be a very bad liar, but Muffy doesn't seem to be terribly concerned about it. She's just like, yeah. Oh. She's like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I like Muffy's role in this episode is like, this episode has a lot to do with Muffy, but she's kind of also unimportant to the episode. It's more of an Arthur episode. Like you said at the start, Arthur Goes Crosswire, I thought it was going to be a Muffy episode, but it really is more of an Arthur episode. Muffy's just kind of like well, not so much innocent, but a bystander in all this.
Yeah, she's like a Greek god on Mount Olympus. It's like there's a lot of the story that's kind of concerning her, but she is not the main part of the story. I guess you could say that. I'm sure you could say a lot of different things. So when they go back out on the yacht, they don't see any more whales. They do run into Wilbur Rabbit, who, if you'll remember from all the way back in Arthur episode 1, is the actor who plays Bionic Bunny on TV. And I guess he's like filming a reality show on his yacht.
That's right, because he's not just out for like a stroll, because there is a boom mic and stuff.
Yeah, and it seems that whether manufactured or not, his yacht has broken down, and they give him a lift onto the shore, and then they are on Wilbur Rabbit's show the following night, and Arthur's kind of bragging about it to everybody. So the whole thing with this episode is that Arthur kind of becomes a hanger-on to Muffy, and I will say it's a very nice, subtle, kind of bougie tone to his voice that Arthur adopts when he's like talking about high society. It's kind of hard to reproduce, but it's a very affected, like, you know, when he says like, besides, the club's for friends only, and it's like,
so I have a perfect way of explaining this.
Go do it.
Arthur, when he starts to act like Muffy in this episode, sounds exactly like Frasier's brother Niles.
Okay, yeah, I kind of hear that.
He's got the same mannerisms and the same speech patterns, and he reacts to situations in ways that I can only assume are the same.
Yeah, he's very like Connecticut nouveau riche.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's a very good choice by the voice actor, Michael Yarmush. I thought that was a very nice touch. So they see him on TV that night. He's watching it at Muffy's place. Of course, Arthur's cameo is nothing to write home about. He just kind of freezes in front of the camera. But he's bragging about the next day, about how he was watching it and how big Muffy's high-D TV was.
Do you think that television was like, what, 480?
It can't be more than it. We're not. I don't even think we're not talking 720 at this point. It's 1999.
Yeah. It was probably like 480i or something.
It's like one of those old big screen TVs from the 90s. Like you would go to your friend's house and it's like you didn't know at the time like how the lighting on the screen was so terrible because like if the sun hits it at all, then you can't see a thing.
I'll tell you what, though, they're great to play Smash Brothers Melee or Parappa the Rappa on. Not much else, though.
That is what they're built for. Watching the Wilbur Rabbit's TV show on what Arthur says is the Celebrities at Sea Network.
Which is a funny line.
Yeah, just the kind of satellite TV gag that you would get back in the 90s.
Right. Arthur says that you can only get it on satellite TV and sort of gives Brain some guff for not having satellite TV.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we get the, Arthur acting snooty. He's just like, don't you have satellite TV? And kind of starts leading him down the wrong path. Him and Arthur and Muffy decide to make the Friends of Wilbur Rabbit Society or something like that.
Yes.
Arthur is writing up their pledge on like this authentic 1800s like scroll paper. I don't know where he got that from. He would have probably had to like it looks like there's like a rip in the top. It's all rolled up. He probably had to like put some authentic coffee stains on that or put it in the oven or something.
Well, also their pledge is like word for word a ripoff of the
Declaration.
See, I don't want to speak out of turn here because I'm not sure if it is the Declaration. It's some sort of famous American document from that era, and I apologize if I'm getting this wrong. We are Canadians, but I know that we the people's important. I know that it's, Alexander Hamilton stuff. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Like at one point, Arthur is writing down with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's like ripped from something.
Oh, it absolutely is. But I want to say the Declaration of Independence, but American listeners, feel free to correct us on this because the closest we have is the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is, and it's also, I thought it was kind of cute of like the Friends of Wilbur Rabbit Society is kind of like a fan site before fan sites were a thing.
Well, people used to have fan clubs all the time. If you remember, Selena was killed by a member of her fan club.
That's right. And yeah, but like fan clubs that you would send away for. I remember, so like I used to rent Power Rangers videotapes all the time. And at the end of the videotape, you could join the Power Rangers fan club by like sending away a self-addressed stamped envelope and like, I don't know, a check for $10 or $20 or something, and you could get like all of these stickers and like a membership card and like a static cling and stuff like that. And I always wanted to join it and I never did. But in that sense of just like that was kind of how fan clubs were a thing. There was the Nintendo Power fan club that was all mail order and stuff like that. Anyway, at any rate, Arthur is again acting very bad and bougie at this point, if you'll allow me the indulgence. And he is. We also hear Muffy's word now. If Muffy's used this before, and I feel like she probably has, it has not been very much. Like it's not yet her catchphrase. She says vomitrocious.
Yes, she's definitely said it a couple times. I remember you pointing out like, oh, Muffy said vomitrocious for the first time.
But like when Arthur drops his lunch on the floor, even though it's still in the bag, she's like, you don't want to be eating a germ witch, and then Arthur drops a book on the ground and she's like vomitrocious. And that's when we kind of realize that Arthur is beginning to quote unquote go crosswire. It's because he himself says vomitrocious and he kind of says it in a very uncertain way, like he's just kind of testing out a new catchphrase. He's just like, it's like, I don't want to pick that book off the ground. Vomitrocious.
A couple things here. One, when he drops the sandwich on the ground and discards it and gives it to Buster, Buster says, "Oh, great, because my mom only packed me one sandwich today." Buster's living that 2-sandwich lifestyle, and I think we'd all be better for it if we all adopted Buster's 2-sandwich way of living.
Agreed.
Many a time have I found myself at work with a brown-bagged sandwich thinking, I wish I had another sandwich. Secondly, when... this part, I was like, this is probably the hardest I laughed at this first episode, is when Arthur says vomitrocious, and it leaves Binky and Brain kind of befuddled and confused. The Brain has his Horatio of CSI Miami moment, where Binky goes, "Oh, Arthur's got a haywire or something," and then the Brain goes, "No, he's gone crosswire." And he like just came short of putting on the sunglasses, and then
You're absolutely right. It's actually afterwards when Brain and Binky are trying to return Arthur's book to him, and he thinks that they're asking for an autograph, so he signs the book. And and Brain's like, Arthur's gone haywire, and a couple of good shots right here back to back. First, it's the zoom in to Brain's eyes. It's an extreme close up of his eyes as he's got like the I don't know what you'd call it, but like the raised eyebrow and the concerned look, and he says crosswire. And then it's like Binky with the book open and Arthur's autograph, and he closes the book, and then we do a wipe, and Arthur is opening a book at the exact same angle. I thought that was really cool. Buster comes in to ask him if he wants to go see the new video game Planet Smasher at the arcade.
What do you think Planet Smasher's like? You think it's like
We get a screenshot of it, and it's a planet exploding, and it's a double joystick game, so maybe it's like an Asteroids clone or something.
Or it's like there was that game that was like the reverse of Missile Command. I think it was made by the Missile Command people, but instead of like shooting at missiles coming towards the ground, you were like had a view of the Earth, and you would shoot. Oh, I don't know if you were shooting missiles down at the Earth or you were still shooting missiles, but from a different perspective. Gosh, that's gonna kill me. I'm gonna Google what this game's called, but continue on.
Sure thing. And Arthur says that he and Muffy are convening the Friends of Wilbur Rabbit Society, and Buster thinks that sounds cool, but no. Arthur says only people who know Wilbur can join, and that it's only for Wilbur Rabbit's friends. Like, he's big timing Buster, even though he met Wilbur Rabbit once. He and Muffy think that they've got this relationship, which is at least a parody of how kind of high society relationships go. So we do get to see a little bit of Planet Smasher at the arcade as Arthur and his friends kind of note that Arthur is going crosswire and essentially turning into Muffy. So they just devise a plan to kind of snap him out of it for good. And Brains like comes up with a plan. It's like, Buster, that's a great idea. What we're gonna do is, and I'm like, why are you whispering the plan? Arthur's not there, and you're in a noisy arcade.
For the sake of the plot.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess.
Their plan essentially is, as Arthur and Muffy are walking by the whole group playing a game of baseball the next day, they all begin to imitate Muffy. And it's kind of great because this whole part essentially becomes an exercise in dragging Muffy. Because Buster says vomitrocious. They're all kicking the ball around. They don't want to get dirty. Francine walks to the next base and says, "I'm too tired to go to the next base." And if I was Muffy, I would be pretty insulted.
The big thing I took away from all this is that of all of them, I think the funniest Muffy impression is Binky. It's just really fun to see Binky act like Muffy because they're so different.
Yeah, because Arthur begins to kind of see this, and there's a kind of a neat effect where a couple of the kids, their heads get switched with Muffy's heads, but doing the exact same thing. And when it goes to Binky, it's like if Muffy were Binky's size. It's kind of size appropriate. Yeah, and his accent is just like, "This glove is hideous. It doesn't go with my outfit at all." So it's a little bit of Valley Girl in there or something, which is not far off. Buster gets in a pretty sick dig at Arthur. He says, "Do you want to come to the Bionic Bunny fan club tonight?" And Arthur says, "That sounds great. Can I come?" And then Buster's like, "Sorry, Arthur. The club is for Bionic Bunny fans, not Wilbur Rabbit's friends."
Which I think Buster sold it like in his delivery, but I will say that moment was a little on the nose.
Yeah, but it was definitely was aimed to hurt, and the Buster's kind of sleepy expression on his face was it was perfect. I could feel the revenge coming back a little bit there. So then Arthur notes that everybody's acting like Muffy, but then Muffy says, "No, they're acting like you," and we kind of get a little bit of a flashback to Arthur's lines previously in the episode, but instead of his head, it's Muffy's head.
This is our it's like being John Malkovich mixed with the usual suspects. Like I will say, like, this was weird because not only is it like, so it's Arthur's clothes and it's Muffy's head, so it's like a mix of Muffy and Arthur. But I do think it was kind of redundant to show us all these moments from the episode that we just saw. I understand what they were going for, but I don't know, it was a little clunky.
Yeah, a little bit. And at this point, Muffy kind of she has seen all this. Like, this isn't, she's not ignorant to what's going on, but she is kind of just like, she's like, everyone, there's only one of me, and that's me. So thank you for your imitations, but I think I'll just stick to being Muffy from now on or something. And she walks away. And this was kind of the part that, I guess, how it all comes together. And essentially the episode ends with Arthur jumping into a puddle and renouncing his Muffy impression. And I kind of am confused with, like, where this leaves Muffy. You know what I mean? Because she's kind of...
I think it leaves Muffy exactly where she started.
Yeah.
I think Muffy learned I think something we learned about Muffy from this episode is that she's kind of impervious to their criticism of her. So this episode was more about Arthur learning a lesson than Muffy learning a lesson. I think the takeaway is Muffy's Muffy, and that ain't changing.
I guess so, but it's kind of strange because I almost expected something, given the fact that it's like Arthur Goes Crosswire, and it's like the whole episode is vergent upon her. Vergent is no word. It's relying on her as a character, but it also is not about her at all. So whether or not that works for you is, I guess, up to you, and we'll talk about it later. But for me, I kind of left this episode more confused than anything. And then the final shot is Binky actually kind of agreeing with the Muffy impression he did earlier, of just like, the more I think about it, it's true. This glove totally clashes with my outfit. Vomitrocious.
Keep that moment in mind for when we're talking about this episode again.
Sure, okay. And now, a word from us kids. This one concerns the All Children's Storybook Theater class, where it's a bunch of kids who are in an acting class and talking about what it's like to play a character that is not at all like them. So in the sense that Arthur was not acting like himself and, you know, being more like Muffy, in this is kind of the good way to do it in terms of, you know, acting out a different character.
This is it's one of those word from us kids where it's like, it's a little bit of a stretch, like it's only ancillarily, you know how to pronounce that. It's only like a little bit related to the episode in the sense that Arthur was kind of acting, and I guess they could show these kids having an acting session, but it doesn't really have much to do with the episode.
Yeah, it's a little hinky, but at the same time, it's like, good enough. They are, kind of rehearsing a play and figuring out their characters. It's just an original play. There's one of the cutaways in this one, so it cuts from them rehearsing the play to like them in front of a chalkboard with kind of dramatic lighting. It's almost like an Office style cutaway before The Office.
Yeah, and the one girl who's really the star of the show is the one with like the really big 90s hair.
Yeah.
Her enthusiasm's infectious.
She's got some great gestures too throughout, and I did have to laugh at the closing line. One of the other girls is just like, if you want to act, you should become an actor.
It's true.
So straightforward, truer words were never spoken.
And now back to Arthur.
All right, let's get on to the second story here, Sue Ellen and the Brainosaurus, and this one. I loved this cold open, or maybe I shouldn't be calling it. I've been referring it to cold open all this time, but I think we actually have a canon term for what these are. So it's the start of the episode. Arthur is being recorded on a video camera, and he says, some people have to do everything themselves, and then the whole point is that Brain is taking over what he calls the teaser. So they put the name teaser on it, and he's being a little bit of a backseat driver on the whole thing. He's trying to get Arthur to emote more, or as he says, I like this, put a little shape into the line.
This moment, the way this moment breaks the fourth wall and how it's like Brain directing the episode is great. And I don't know if it's because like the Disaster Artist is in theaters right now, so like sort of abrasive directors or crazed directors is hot right now, but I really enjoyed this moment, and like Brain saying put a little shape in the line is such a good, that's just such a funny line.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the only way this could have been better is if Brain had the Tommy Wiseau accent, and at the end there, when he's trying to stage manage Arthur so much that eventually he just puts on Arthur's clothes and does the line reading for him. So it's like, some people just have to do everything themselves. They won't let anybody help them. He doesn't say it like that. I'm just saying I couldn't resist the Tommy Wiseau accent. And Brain in Arthur's clothes and his glasses, it's weird. It's like just off enough where your brain's like, hey, wait a second, this isn't right.
We'll talk about great editing. The comedic timing in this is fantastic because we have Braid's delivery of the line and wearing Arthur's clothes, and we immediately cut to an Arthur just wearing a white shirt and no glasses with a frown on his face. And it's a great smash cut.
Yeah, it is. It's a great little thing. I like when Arthur gets meta, and I like when it kind of takes a little bit of the air out of itself. This one was a real winner. So again, this whole story is based off of the premise that they're doing the report on an animal they're choosing, and the team this time is Sue Ellen and the Brain. So they get put together and they decide that they're going to do a model dinosaur, a model T-Rex. So as they're meeting after school, Brain says that he has to do the preliminary sketches of, they're going to do a model of it, so he's going to do that and get back to her later. As Sue Ellen's kind of talking about it with some of the other kids like Francine and Buster, they say, you're not going to have to do a lot of work with Brain, and Buster loved being paired with Brain because he's the best partner I ever had. He doesn't say why, but then Francine kind of says, well, you're my partner now, and you're going to have to work for it, sort of thing. So the implication is that Brain will do the lion's share of the work. This kind of reminded me of, just in general, team projects in grade school. I think we've talked about this before in the episode where Arthur, Francine, and Buster were a team. I believe the episode was called Team Trouble. But it reminded me of, there was always, you would come across every once in a while those groups you would be in where the balance of power, or rather the balance of work, was very unequal.
It's true. I feel like later in life, teachers started correcting this with peer evaluations. But in elementary school, it was sort of an unregulated Wild West where someone could end up doing all the work and someone else doing none and coasting on by.
Absolutely. So it just gave me a little bit of a flashback to that. So Sue Ellen is not exactly, at first she's, at home eating popcorn and not really concerning herself, but she doesn't want to do nothing. So she calls the Brain and asks how it's going, and he kind of brushes her off at first because his head is really into this T-Rex model, and he has an imagination of himself, and he is like I want to say at least 10 to 15 years older, and he's presenting in front of a studio audience his latest finding, which turns out to be a live T-Rex. Now so I've got a few things to say about this imagination sequence. First off, like, before we really see anything, we hear Brain's grown-up voice, and it's so douchey, and I love it because it fits it so perfectly. He is the stereotypical, almost like .com entrepreneur. Like,
I wrote down the same thing. He's like a tech CEO at a press conference, being like, "Oh, the Galaxy S phone is," and mixed with like the worst of TED Talks, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it nails it.
And again, it's a great credit to Brain's voice actor because he's able to kind of age himself up a little bit, but it really sounds so smarmy. He's like, ever since I was a little boy, I knew that I was going to be... It's kind of hard to to imitate, but once you hear it, you know what I mean. So Brain like rises a T-Rex up from a platform, and what it does is he gives it the microphone, and it does like an awful stand-up routine in a Groucho Marx voice.
When you say awful, I think what you really mean is amazing. I don't know what it is, but whenever Arthur has a take on stand-up comedy, I always find it beyond hilarious. Like in the episode where Fern's got the robot, the computer, and the computer's making a bunch of stand-up comedy jokes, I was like enjoying that like a laugh riot. Similarly with the Groucho Marx dinosaur, I don't even know if I was laughing. I think I just had mouth agape shock on my face as this like dinosaur, without having to do with anything else in the entire episode, it just goes into a stand-up comedy routine.
But I mean,
did you write down what the joke was? I don't even remember what the joke was, just that it was fantastic.
Oh, it was it's like I woke up one morning with an elephant in my pajamas. How the elephant got in my pajamas, I'll never know. But even in like, no matter how you feel about the joke, even in universe, it's meant to be like bad because the audience, is at first very afraid of the T-Rex. Then he makes the joke and they listen to it, and then they all run out screaming. And then after it's over, Brain kind of says, "I need to work on his material," which I thought was a funny line. So Brain is very much a lot, maybe too much, is riding on this T-Rex model, and he's. Over the episode, he has a couple of visions of what he think Sue Ellen's contributions to the model might be. And his first one is that she would make an entire T-Rex out of like cake and pastries. And so he like imagines that happening. And, all the kids rush over to the display and they end up eating it. And then there's a couple of great lines from Imaginary Ratburn in this episode. And he's just like, "Unfortunately, this isn't a baking contest. You fail."
Yeah, unlike Miss Mary Berry or Paul Hollywood, Mr. Ratburn was not very impressed.
Which didn't make a lot of sense to me, because I think even in Brain's imagination, wouldn't he know that Mr. Ratburn, like, loves the heck out of some cake? Wouldn't he love this?
Well, he didn't get any. The kids ate it first.
I guess so. Maybe, you know what? Maybe that's the key. Maybe he's jealous. So Brain is very... trepidatious about letting Sue Ellen near this, and at this point he begins to like actually avoid her. We get another instance like Sue Ellen's in the library and saying to Francine, like, "I haven't been able to find him for the last couple of days." Brain uses like a newspaper as a disguise. It's almost like a hitman level. He's like the amount of times that like newspaper and reading materials are used as disguises in Arthur is great, and although it is a little bit misrepresenting of how good a newspaper is at like hiding your identity.
Well, it's a very like prop comedy, like Buster Keaton, Carrot Top, like that kind of humor where it's like two eye holes in a newspaper to spy on people. But it always is. The reason people still do jokes like that is because it's a funny visual and it works. Brain is almost a pseudo villain in this episode. Not really. He's just kind of an antagonist in that he's not letting Sue Ellen be part of the project, and he's being a little bit controlling. But I always seem to enjoy the episodes where Brain is an antagonist more than when he's just like a regular character. I don't know if it's because I naturally dislike his character. Maybe there's a little bit of too much of Sheldon Cooper in there for me. But I like the episode where Brain is a straight up villain, where he's like trying to prank Buffy. That's like the most I've ever gotten a kick out of Brain, and we get a little bit of shades of this in here. I just think he's more interesting when he's into the darker stuff.
I think I agree. It's just that he's able to show a little bit more depth of character. Like when he's a baby face, he's like not super interesting. He's just kind of there. But when he's
a know-it-all.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's more natural for him to be like, if he's a know-it-all, let's have his negative qualities shine a little bit more.
Yeah, and his negative qualities are inherently much more interesting. So I agree with you there. Brain is, or Sue Ellen imagines that, I think Fern kind of feeds Sue Ellen's imagination. She thinks that Brain is overworking himself, and we get a quick cutaway where it's like Brain, his head is attached to like this Rube Goldberg device, where it's like if he ever... leans his head down towards the desk and gets tired, then like this hits this and this hits that, and like a laser cuts a rope on a skeleton on a chalkboard, and it just screeches, and it just sits up and goes, "Must keep working, must keep working."
I'm a sucker for a good Rube Goldberg machine.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want to go past this, and I apologize because I interrupted you, but when they're in the library and Brain's hiding behind the newspaper, we have an incredible moment where Sue Ellen confronts the Brain, and he runs off into a closet, and when he turns the light on, Buster's there hiding. The subplot of this episode is that Buster's avoiding Francine because he's used to working with Brain. He just doesn't want to do any work, so he's just refusing to participate in the project whatsoever. And so he has a great line about Brain essentially blowing up his spot by entering his hiding place.
Yeah, Brain's like, that was close, and Buster's like, "You're telling me you almost gave away my position." We also get a great Buster disguise as he's in the library, and Francine is still actively looking for him, and he's dressed up like a member of ZZ Top. He's got this like giant beard and trench coat and hat, but he almost gives himself away.
He looks like he's about to solve a murder on the Orient Express.
Yeah, it's like that level of bad facial hair. Sue Ellen again goes to Brain's house to try and offer her help. Like, Brain is almost halfway done the T-Rex at this point, and Sue Ellen volunteers to make the head out of clay. But Brain is very nervous about this, and he imagines that she is going to make the clay head like have long blonde hair and like these giant red lips. Which looks kind of freaky. And another great Ratbird line in Brain's imagination. He's like,
"Oh, this was so good.
I'm afraid you're gonna be in third grade for a long time, Alan." But yeah, it's kind of like with Brain being the maybe not the villain in this episode, but an antagonist of sorts. Like, his fears about Sue Ellen are not really giving her a lot of credit. They're almost a little regressive in a way. He's just like, "Oh, she's gonna make it girly," or it's like she's gonna make it out of cake or something because she's a girl. And it's not necessarily that she is a girl, but that's kind of what his brain goes to. He's just they don't. There's a possibility that they may not share a vision, and Brain is being, as they will call him later, a report hog, because he's a bit of a control freak. But I wasn't up on kind of Brain's imaginations of what it could be. I will say the two of them create a T-Rex head, their own T-Rex head, out of modeling clay, and this is like pro level clay work. From I realized early on when I was a kid I was not good at making things out of clay, like not even Play-Doh, but like this is some real good stuff. I'm impressed.
There's a quick Barney joke, I think, where Sue Ellen's making the dinosaur head skeleton, and she makes one that looks like Barney, and then kind of shakes her head and goes, "No," and then like makes one that actually looks photorealistic. I guess that's what that was.
I think you're right, actually. That's a good observation. It does look a lot like Barney, and yeah, no, that I can't believe I missed that. It's very smiley. I just thought it was that like, oh, it doesn't look like the T-Rex head that they eventually go with. It doesn't look like photorealistic or anything. But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right about that. Good catch.
For you ASMR fans out there, there's some great clay ASMR noises during this montage.
A lot of great,
much to my chagrin.
A lot of great squelching noises on the clay. Sue Ellen brings the head over to Brains the next morning. He's been working all night. That's
right. Sue Ellen's a really big fan of crime cinema. Bring me the head of the T-Rex to Brain tomorrow night.
Yeah. I will say Tired Brain looks like me at any point of any day. Like, Brain answers the door in his pajamas and his hair is all mussed up and he looks half asleep, and I'm like, yeah, that's just kind of how I look and how I dress. So Sue Ellen brings in her T-Rex head, but then finds out that Brain has done his own, and she shows it to him, and he's very hypercritical of it. He's just like, the bridge of the nose is all wrong, and and this is wrong. It's like she holds it next to it. It's just like, they look exactly the same, and Brain's like, maybe to the untrained eye. So
do you know the name of Sue Ellen's voice actor?
I can find out.
I think I've said this before in another previous Sue Ellen episode, but I think of all the voice work in Arthur, Sue Ellen might have my favorite vocal performance. Like I said it before in other episodes, but I think Sue Ellen's voice is so unique, and the way she delivers her lines are, I think, a step above almost all the other actors in terms of realism. Like a lot of the other voice actors, it's not necessarily they give bad performances. I love the voice acting on Arthur, but a lot of it is like cartoon voice acting, where a lot of it can be overstated or over the top. Sue Ellen's timing and delivery is so perfect throughout this episode. Like when she's playing off Brain, it's always like some characters, like when they're voice acting, like specifically Buster and stuff like that, like it sounds like they're delivering, or Arthur's a lot of times too, it sounds like they're delivering lines in a booth. Sue Ellen always sounds like she's interacting with the other person, and I've always really enjoyed her voice work. She has a great line later on in this episode where her mom asks her if she's having a bad dream, and she goes, "Ugh, a bad reality." And it's just such a perfect delivery. And I also think that vocal range is on display here, where she's sort of going back and forth with Brain and getting more and more frustrated and sticking up for herself. And she does just a fantastic job.
I agree, and I think that's a good point to make. And I didn't even really actively think about it until talking about it right here. I think she's got one of the more underrated voices in Arthur, but I absolutely understand what you're talking about. And this episode's a great showcase for her. The actor's name is Patricia Rodriguez, who did Sue Ellen from seasons 1 to 8, and there's a different voice actor that's doing her now. So yeah, I'm glad that you kind of brought that up. It's a very good point. So Brain eventually finishes the T-Rex on his own, and Sue Ellen's very frustrated with him. And she sees him at school the next day. He's like transporting it on like a rolling base, I guess you'd call it. And it kind of like he doesn't have a very good handle on it. And Sue Ellen tries to help him carry it in, but even then he's very reluctant. He's just like, "I'll do it on my own. It's fine." And then Sue Ellen kind of lets it go as they're struggling, and he ends up falling over, and it falls into a conveniently placed mud pit. So Brain falls like face first into it, and then the bones are all mixed up into the mud pit, and he kind of runs away. He's talking about it with Francine pretty much right after it happens.
This was so great.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, not to interrupt, but yeah, you're right, because Francine initially is just like, "And she let you fall in the mud? That's hilarious." And so she's kind of clowning on Brain right now. And I mean, we're used to this. Francine is, she even says it herself. She says, "I'm kind of a rude person," which is
she says, "I would have pushed you."
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of a rude person.
And she brings to light the fact that the Brain is routinely a report hog. But I just thought it was a great rare example of Francine's kind of demeaning someone to actually be like earned. Like it's not her being a bully. It's kind of Brain getting his just desserts by having Francine laugh at him and say that he probably deserved it.
I also think that it was refreshing to see Francine be so self-aware. Like the way she, again, and it's another case of perfect delivery with the playful way she delivers. Well, I'm kind of a rude person. We don't usually see Francine in this role as like a side character, one, giving sage advice, and two, being the comic relief. And I like Francine in this role. Again, I prefer Brain as an antagonist, and I prefer Francine as like the wise friend.
Yeah, no, you're right. Self-aware is the word for it, and I really appreciated it too. And she kind of brings to light the times that Brain has acted this way. Like they did a report the year before, she says, where he was Napoleon and Brain's dressed up, in the typical Napoleon garb, and Francine was France. And so she has a beret on, and she's lying on the floor, and they like basically cut a hole out of a giant map of France, and she's just supposed to stand there, and like she said, "You didn't give me any lines," and like Brain leans down to her and shushes her, which I thought was really funny. She says even in preschool he had to do things his own way, where like he and Buster are finger painting, and he kind of editorializes Buster's picture of himself and like adds his own little smile, so it's him kind of butting in on somebody else's work. And then Francine's like, "Well, how would you feel if Sue Ellen treated you the way you treated her?" And it's like prospectively Sue Ellen kind of yelling at him for ruining her potential A+, which is a bit more aggressive than Brain was to her, but it's in kind of the same spirit. Yeah, so and the word here is report hog, as Brain and Francine kind of say. And like, if I were in Sue Ellen's situation, I probably would have called him something a little worse than report hog. But they can't exactly do that on PBS, so it's understood. Brain eventually does apologize to Sue Ellen. He's still got the mud on him, and he thinks that their report is ruined. But then Sue Ellen has come up with a way for it to work. The final scene of the story is we kind of come in on the end of Arthur and Muffy's presentation on whales, and Arthur's wearing this actually pretty cool whale costume.
Yeah, it's I assume like Muffy financed the construction of this whale costume, because it's like halftime show mascot level of quality. But you're right, I do love how this came full circle and both of these stories were happening concurrently, so we get to see the fruits of Arthur and Muffy's whale watching expedition.
Yeah, and so when Brain and Sue Ellen are called on to do their presentation, Sue Ellen asks to move it outside, and it's, like I said, the conveniently placed mud pit that the bones fell into actually works out to be a great example of them kind of simulating an archaeological dig. So, they have unintentionally recreated how scientists would have discovered dinosaur bones. And Binky has a line here when it's just like, can we go... Sue Ellen says, can we go outside for our presentation? And Binky goes, all right, field trip.
Gosh, Binky, I know we've said Binky is the best character, but, when is Binky not delivered? Whenever he's on screen, he just makes everything that in the episode better. In both these episodes.
Binky just grows on you. So, Sue Ellen introduces the idea, and then Brain's role is to show everybody how to dig it up. The very end is Buster saying that their report is going to take all day, so they probably have an extra day to finish their report. Does Francine and Buster, and it ends with Francine handcuffing herself to Buster and saying, we're sticking together until it's done.
Like that Nathan For You episode where he handcuffs the guy before he can cash the check. They have to get a hotel room together. It's a very good Nathan For You episode.
I'll have to take your word for it. Okay, so with kind of the same framing device of both of these stories, let's talk about what we thought about them. Let's go back to Arthur Goes Crosswire. What'd you think?
Arthur Goes Crosswire, it's difficult, right? Because the whole point of the episode is for Arthur to act so annoying that his friends can't stand him because he's acting like Muffy. But I don't know if Arthur was the best fit as a character to act like Muffy. Like I said before about X-Pac heat with Prunella, Arthur gets so annoying that you just kind of don't really want to watch the episode anymore. And it's also another one of those episodes where you could kind of see the moral coming from a mile away. Not really the moral, but the conclusion. Obviously, Arthur's not just going to act like Buffy forever, so something's going to change him back. And it got me thinking during the end sequence when they're all playing the baseball game and everybody's acting like Buffy, I got a lot more enjoyment out of Binky acting like Buffy. And I thought it'd be a lot more interesting if, you had the exact same episode, but instead of Arthur being so worried about, the esteem that comes along with hanging around with Muffy and sort of becoming addicted to that, if it was Binky in that situation, I think that'd be a lot more interesting and maybe a lot more fun to see that character in that situation. Whereas Arthur, we know he's super anxious and we know he super cares about how everybody thinks of him. And so it just kind of seemed like it was treading similar water that we've seen before. So I didn't really end up enjoying Arthur Goes Crosswire.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't think it's like The Pits or anything like that, but it's definitely not one I would want to revisit. There were some. I do want to point out there were some good lines here and there. So there was a couple of good sight gags as well. But overall,
great direction with either. Both these episodes had really good animation direction and storyboarding.
Well, I might disagree with you just a little bit there. I felt that the animation at times in Arthur Goes Crosswire was a little awkward, and I don't want to go too far into criticizing animation because really I'm not the type of person to say. But I just kind of felt like there was a lot more life in Sue Ellen and the Brainosaurus versus I felt there were I noticed that there were quite a few just static shots of the characters not moving too much. And I don't know, it just, the animation didn't totally work for me in that first story. Yeah, and the whole moral, it's like I said, I was kind of confused by the end of how to feel, because it was a Muffy episode, but it wasn't, and I was kind of not sure kind of what the meaning of her being there was at the end of it. Maybe I'm looking too much into it, which is totally possible. But you're right. The moral of it all was kind of, you could see it coming a mile away, and it didn't really do enough to endear me to it in any way. So it's not, it's not awful, but it's definitely not one I would check out again. Sue Ellen and the Brainosaurus, I will say, is definitely the stronger of the two, I feel. And you made a great point about both about Brain being much better in this kind of more antagonizing role, and that Sue Ellen's voice actor does a really great job. I just kind of liked the idea of, it being relatable, of being in a team situation and wanting to pull your weight, but the other person not really wanting to. So I thought that the character play between the two of them worked pretty well here, and I thought that the episode was pretty funny at points, like even more so than Arthur Goes Crosswire. Like Brain's voice when he's doing like the Steve Jobs stand-up, the lengths Buster went to get out of doing the work and all this sort of stuff. I thought that was really funny. And Francine's moment of clarity I also really liked. So I'd say this is probably, if Arthur Goes Crosswire is kind of on the left side of the middle, I'd say this is a little bit on the right side of the middle. It's not terrific or anything, but I did enjoy it for what it was.
I really liked Sue Ellen and the Brainosaurus. I thought it was like a joy to watch. Maybe it was because I was pleasantly surprised after being disappointed by Arthur Goes Crosswire, and I was a little bored at that point. But I was throughfully entertained by Sue Ellen and the Brainosaurus. From great lines like Brain sort of playing a director in the opening, put a little shape in that line, or his tech presentation, or there's like so many small moments in this episode that we didn't even have time to touch on that I really enjoyed. Like there's a part where right after Sue Ellen calls Brain to ask like what she could do with the project, Brain pushes himself back like off his desk in his desk chair and lets out like an anguished sigh. And like there's tons of small moments in this episode. Like similarly, like Sue Ellen's line about a bad reality, or Buster hiding in the closet. Like this episode's full of little moments that I enjoyed, but also it really delivers with the fun moral, with the overall plot. And like you said, I think this episode, hearing you talk about how, it's so negative that Brain actually like perceived Sue Ellen as making like a dumb girly, like Brain's character in this episode assumes he's smarter than everybody, and that's why he's a control freak, because he wants to get the best grade possible, and he doesn't trust anybody else to be as smart as him or to put as good of a project out there as him. And that's why he has all these really funny imagination sequences of him getting failed, because he doesn't expect much from anybody else. And I think that this episode's actually pretty important in a modern context, and seeing like Brain expecting Sue Ellen to put out this girly statue is pretty similar to how some people would look down on other people and judge a book by its cover, or have some expectations going in that other people aren't as smart as them. So I think this episode, not only is it really, really funny and full of fun moments, but I think it's got a moral that, still applies today if you're an adult, not even just as an episode of Arthur. So I really enjoyed Sue Ellen and the Brainosaurus. Good.
I'm glad that you did. The episode as a whole felt a little more lukewarm to me, but I also got to say it's one of my favorite cold opens with Sue Ellen and the Brainosaurus. So kudos to them on that one. And I'm very heartened. It's like I know that back in season 2 when we started to hit kind of a wave of like not great episodes, one after the other, we were kind of a little disheartened as to its quality, but I did take a little peek at what we can expect for season 3 of Arthur. I'm so excited to keep going with this season. Like I knew that this one was going to be one where I might not be as into it as some of the other ones that we've done so far. But man, some of the episodes we've got coming, I don't want to spoil anything yet, but I am so excited to keep going with season 3. It's like this could end up being, I again don't want to jinx it or even potentially spoil it, but it could be like the best season yet. So even though we weren't super high on this episode, stick with us because it's going to go some places. Is season 3. All right, so let's end it off like we always do. Instead of going through in detail, let me just quickly say you can find us on social media. Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits, at ECL Podcast on Twitter, ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com. You can email us just like Matt, Josh, and Corban did. Thank you, everybody, to ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com. And you can find our entire back catalog one of 3 ways. You can go to ElwoodCityLimits.libsyn.com. That's LIBSYN. You can go to the iTunes store, or I should say the Apple Music store, and go under podcasts, find us there. And we are also available on the Google Play Store. Let us know if we should be anywhere else on the World Wide Web. I will also make mention that this is the season to go over to soundcloud.com/Elwood City Limits. And, get yourself our Arthur's Perfect Christmas commentary. A lot of good feedback for it so far. People really enjoying listening to it. And we were glad to make it. So enjoy it with your your normal holiday playlist this year. Okay, coming up next time on the show, we continue into Season 3. Now, sometimes, Lucas, the episode titles can be a little bit of a mystery to you. This one is a mystery to me. So I don't even know what's coming next. We've got Background Blues, and Now Let's Talk to Some Kids.
What? What is now? Now let's talk to some kids.
So I remember that one, but Background Blues I have no memory of. So I'm looking very much forward to, again, not spoilers, but Arthur getting a little meta in the second half there, and now let's talk to some kids. In case you couldn't guess from the episode title. All right, so if we get back to you in this crazy Yuletide month, then we will be happy to. But if not, we wish you all the best and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, or whatever it is you may be celebrating. Lucas, anything else to say?
I'm afraid you're going to be in the 3rd grade for a long time, Alan.
All right, everybody, we'll catch you next time for Elwood City Limits. That's Lucas Mancini. I'm Will Young, and ho, ho, ho.